The galactic net had never been silent before. Across tens of thousands of civilizations, billions of communication nodes, and millions of star systems, the net was always alive with chatter. Trade negotiations, diplomatic messages, scientific discoveries, and the endless noise of galactic life. But on this day, it went silent. Not because the systems failed, not because a war had broken out, but because of one message. The message appeared simultaneously across every diplomatic network, military channel, and public data stream in the known galaxy. No encryption, no origin point, no traceable sender. Just 7 simple words. Earth has been designated the next target. The Galactic Council. At the center of the galaxy floated the artificial world known as Council Prime. A megastructure built by ancient civilizations, it served as the political heart of the Galactic Alliance. Representatives from over 300 advanced species lived and worked there. On the day the message arrived, the council chamber erupted into chaos. "Impossible!" shouted Ambassador Krail of the Vorth Dominion. The reptilian diplomat slammed his clawed hand against the crystal table. "Earth is a protected world under council law." Across the chamber, the crystalline being known as Solari flickered with anxious light. "Protected worlds have been targeted before," it said calmly, "but never by them." The chamber grew quiet. Everyone knew what the Solari meant. The message had only 7 words, but its implication was clear. There was only one force in the galaxy that marked targets like this. A force that no civilization had ever defeated. A force that destroyed entire star nations. The Apex Devourers. The Devourers. No one knew where the Devourers came from. They had first appeared nearly 4,000 years ago at the edge of the Perseus Arm. At first, they seemed like another conquering empire, but that assumption died quickly, because the Devourers didn't negotiate, they didn't communicate, they didn't conquer planets, they erased them. When a world was marked as a target, a message like the one now haunting the galactic net would appear. Sometimes months before the attack, sometimes only days, but always the same. The galaxy would panic, fleets would gather, allies would promise protection, and when the Devourers arrived, nothing survived. Entire star systems vanished, stars dimmed, civilizations thousands of years old were reduced to dust. No technology could stop them, no weapon could damage them, no strategy ever worked. After centuries of war and countless destroyed worlds, the galaxy had learned one brutal truth. If the Devourers mark you, you were already dead. Earth. Compared to most galactic civilizations, humanity was young, very young. Humans had only discovered faster-than-light travel 3 centuries ago. They had joined the Galactic Alliance just 80 years earlier. Many ancient species still saw them as inexperienced newcomers. But humanity surprised the galaxy. Their technology advanced faster than expected. Their diplomacy was bold. Their curiosity was endless. And their military, unpredictable. Humans built ships differently. They designed weapons differently. They fought wars differently. Some admired them. Others distrusted them. But one thing was universally agreed upon. Humans were dangerously creative. Still, none of that mattered now, because Earth had been marked. Panic. Across the galaxy, the reaction was immediate. Trade routes collapsed overnight, refugee fleets launched from nearby systems, entire colonies began evacuations, news channels flooded with speculation, and everywhere the same question was asked: why Earth? Some suspected humanity had provoked the Devourers, others believed Earth was simply the next random victim. But among the oldest species, a darker fear spread. because the Devourers usually targeted strategic worlds, ancient empires, technological hubs, civilizations with dangerous potential. If they had chosen Earth, then humanity was more important than anyone realized. The Emergency Council. Within hours, the Galactic Council called an emergency session. Every representative attended. The enormous holographic star map glowed in the center. A red symbol hovered over the Sol system, the Devourer mark. Councillor Vela of the Aethery spoke first. "We must decide our response." The insectoid diplomat's wings vibrated with tension. "Earth is a protected world under Council law." The question hung heavily in the chamber. Everyone knew what it meant. Defending Earth would require the largest military mobilization in galactic history, and it might still fail. But abandoning Earth would shatter the Alliance forever. Finally, Admiral Corthell of the Terran fleet stood. His species had fought the Devourers longer than anyone. His voice carried the weight of centuries. "I have faced them 5 times," he said, "and every time we lost." He gestured toward the red mark on the map. "If we send fleets to Earth, they will be destroyed." Silence filled the chamber. Then he said the words no one wanted to hear. "Earth cannot be saved." Humanity responds. While the galaxy panicked, humanity did something unexpected. They didn't beg for help. They didn't call for evacuation. They didn't even ask for an emergency council meeting. Instead, the galaxy didn't know how to react. Some believed the message was fake. Others assumed humans were in denial. But among military leaders, the reaction was something else entirely: concern. Because human history showed something unusual. Whenever humanity said, "We'll handle it," something unpredictable usually followed: the human fleet. 3 days after the message appeared, long-range sensors near the Sol system detected massive energy signatures. Hundreds of ships were leaving Earth's orbital shipyards. But these weren't ordinary warships. Alien observers noticed strange things. Ships shaped like massive black spears, others resembling rotating rings. Some appeared almost organic. Others looked like floating weapons platforms. Even stranger, no one in the Alliance had records of most of these designs. The humans had been building ships no one had ever seen before, secretly, for decades. Council Prime Intelligence Report. Inside the Council War Room, analysts studied the incoming data. One of them, a young viral technician, spoke nervously. "Sir, the human fleet count just passed 800 vessels." Admiral Corthell frowned. "That's impressive for their age, but it will not matter." Then the technician spoke again. "There's something else." He zoomed in on a cluster of massive objects leaving Earth's orbit. The room went silent, because those weren't ships. They were structures, gigantic ones, each larger than a small moon. "What are those?" someone whispered. The human ambassador smiled slightly. "We call them Guardians." The Devourers move. 2 weeks after the message appeared, deep space sensors detected something terrifying: a distortion in space-time. Then another, and another. The Devourers were arriving, but this time something was different. Usually their fleets emerged slowly, spreading across entire systems. This time they were moving directly toward Earth, fast, as if they were in a hurry, as if they wanted something very specific. The Hidden Truth. Back on Earth, deep beneath the Himalayan mountains, a classified facility activated systems that had not been used in centuries. Ancient machines hummed to life. A massive chamber opened. Inside rested a structure that looked nothing like human technology. Smooth black metal, covered in symbols no one alive could read. An artifact from humanity's earliest days in space. Discovered on the moon long before humans joined the galactic community.
The artifact had one simple label in Earth's archives: Project Prometheus, and until today, it had never been activated. The Scientist. Dr. Elena Navarro stood before the ancient machine. Her hands trembled slightly, not from fear, from excitement. For 50 years she had studied the artifact, trying to understand what it was, who built it, and why it had been hidden beneath lunar rock for millions of years. Now they finally had a reason to turn it on. A military officer beside her spoke quietly. "Doctor, the Devourers will reach the outer system in 12 hours. She nodded. "That's enough." He hesitated. "Are you certain this will work?" Dr. Navarro looked at the machine, then smiled. "Oh, I'm certain." The signal. Across the galaxy, every sensor suddenly detected something impossible. A signal, but not a normal communication. This one was older, far older than the Galactic Alliance, far older than most civilizations. A signal buried deep in cosmic background radiation, dormant for millions of years, until now. And the source was Earth. Devourer reaction. For the first time in recorded history, the Devourers changed course. Their fleet slowed, then stopped, then did something no one had ever seen before. They began to retreat. The galaxy watches. On Council Prime, every diplomat stared at the sensor feeds in disbelief. Admiral Corthell whispered something no one thought he would ever say. "They're afraid." The human ambassador folded his hands calmly. "Yes, now they are." The real question. But the galaxy had just realized something terrifying. If a simple signal from Earth could scare the Devourers, then humanity knew something about them, something ancient, something powerful, something the rest of the galaxy had never discovered. And suddenly, everyone wanted to know the same thing.
And a growing sense of unease. Admiral Corthell stared at the tactical projection floating above the central table. The hologram showed the Sol system surrounded by blinking markers representing the Devourer fleet. But those markers were moving away, slowly at first, then faster. "They are leaving," one officer whispered. "That is impossible," another replied. Ambassador Crail of the Vorth Dominion slammed his claws on the table. "Humans," he growled, turning toward the human representative. "You knew something. What did you do?" The human ambassador, Elias Ward, stood calmly among the furious diplomats. His expression was unreadable. "We sent a signal," he said simply. The room exploded with questions. "What signal? To whom? How did you force them to retreat?" Ward raised a hand. "The answer is complicated." Admiral Corthell leaned forward. "We have time." Ward looked around the chamber, studying the nervous faces of dozens of alien species. Then he sighed. "Very well," he said quietly. "I suppose the galaxy deserves to know the truth." Humanity's first secret. Long before humanity joined the Galactic Alliance, long before their first faster-than-light ship left Earth, something strange had been discovered on the Moon. The year was 2039. A small mining expedition working inside a deep lunar crater uncovered something buried beneath kilometers of rock. At first, they believed it was a meteorite, but the shape was too perfect, too smooth, too deliberate. It was a structure, a perfectly preserved object made of an unknown material. No seams, no damage, no signs of age. Yet geological dating suggested it had been buried for millions of years. When scientists finally opened it, they found something even more disturbing. Inside the structure was a machine still active, waiting. The first message. When the machine powered up, it transmitted a message, Not in any human language, not even in sound. It was pure data. Complex mathematical sequences and symbolic structures far beyond humanity's understanding at the time. But one thing became immediately clear. The message was not meant for humans. It was meant for something else, something out there, and humanity had just accidentally activated it. The hidden program. For decades, the machine remained a mystery. The world's greatest scientists studied it in secret. Eventually, they managed to decode part of its purpose. The machine was a beacon, an automated signal transmitter designed to remain dormant until intelligent life developed nearby. Once activated, it would send a message across interstellar space. But the message wasn't a greeting. It was a warning meant for something called the Harvesters. The terrifying translation. When humanity finally translated the ancient message, the words chilled every scientist who read them. The beacon's signal read, "Protected species detected, harvesting prohibited." And attached to the message was a single identification code, a code that belonged to the species now known as humans. Humanity's realization. At first, scientists didn't understand what it meant. Protected species. Protected by who? From what? But as humanity expanded into space and discovered ancient alien ruins across nearby star systems, the truth slowly became clear. Millions of years ago, a civilization far more advanced than anything in the modern galaxy had existed. Their technology could manipulate galaxies. Their engineering could reshape stars. And at some point in their history, they had chosen to protect one primitive species on a small blue planet. Humans. Why? No one knew. But the beacon on the moon proved one thing. Humanity had been deliberately marked. Enter the Devourers. When humanity eventually encountered the Galactic Alliance, they learned about the Devourers. At first, the story sounded impossible. Machines that consumed entire civilizations, an unstoppable force older than most species. But when human scientists analyzed devourer behavior patterns, they noticed something strange. The Devourers never attacked certain regions of space, regions where ancient ruins of the long-extinct precursor civilization had been discovered, regions protected by the same strange symbols found on the lunar beacon. And suddenly, the pieces began to fit together. The Devourers were not random destroyers. They were part of the same ancient system. They were the Harvesters, autonomous machines built by the precursor civilization. Their purpose was to remove dangerous civilizations before they could threaten the galaxy, except for those marked as protected. Humanity stayed silent. Once Earth understood this truth, world governments made a decision. They told no one, not the public, not alien civilizations, no one. Because if the galaxy learned that humans possessed a precursor protection marker, the consequences could be catastrophic. Entire empires might attempt to control Earth. Others might try to eliminate humanity before that protection became a threat. So the secret remained for centuries, even after humans joined the Galactic Alliance, even after the Devourers destroyed dozens of civilizations. Humanity said nothing until now. The problem. The beacon on the moon had been dormant for millions of years. When humans activated it, it broadcast the protection signal, but the signal required periodic retransmission, and recently it had stopped working. Human engineers had attempted repairs for years. Nothing worked, which meant that to the Devourers, humanity no longer appeared protected, and so Earth had been marked as the next target. Project Prometheus. Ambassador Ward finished his story. The council chamber was silent. "So the signal we detected today," Admiral Corthell said slowly. Ward nodded. "Yes. We finally repaired the beacon." Across the room, diplomats exchanged uneasy looks. One counselor spoke quietly. "If the Devourers obey this signal, then they were never truly enemies." Ward shrugged.
In a way, they're more like automated gardeners, pruning dangerous civilizations. The words sent a wave of uncomfort through the chamber. Ambassador Krail hissed, "And who decides which species are dangerous?" Ward gave a thin smile. "Not the Devourers, whoever built them." The worst possibility. A young analyst suddenly raised a trembling hand. "Ambassador, there's something you should see." The room's central hologram changed. Instead of the Devourer fleet retreating, another signal appeared. A reply, not from the Devourers, from somewhere far beyond the galactic rim. The translated message was short, terrifyingly short. "Beacon confirmed. Protected species verified." Then another line appeared beneath it, a line that froze everyone in the chamber. "Creator response en route." The new fear. Ambassador Ward stared at the message in silence. Admiral Corthell spoke first. "Creator?" Ward's voice was suddenly very quiet. "The civilization that built the Devourers." The chamber lights seemed dimmer now. Someone whispered the question everyone feared. "They're still alive?" Ward looked at the star map, at the Sol system, at the beacon humanity had just activated, and he said the one thing that made the entire galaxy uneasy.
We're about to find out. For thousands of years, the Apex Devourers had been the ultimate terror of the galaxy. Civilizations collapsed at the mere rumor of their approach. Entire empires abandoned star systems rather than face them. And yet, when they reached the edge of the Sol system, something impossible had happened. They stopped. Then they retreated. No battle, no resistance, just fear. Across the Galactic Alliance, billions watched the sensor feeds in stunned silence, because the greatest destroyers in galactic history had just done something no one believed they were capable of. They had backed away from Earth. The signal that changed everything. Inside the Council war chamber on Council Prime, the tension was suffocating. The massive holographic star map showed the Devourer fleet pulling farther and farther away from the Sol system. Admiral Corthell stared at the projection, his ancient eyes narrowing. "I have fought these machines for centuries," he said slowly. "I have seen them charge through planetary shields, through supernova traps, through fleets of thousands." He turned toward the human ambassador. "I have never seen them retreat." Ambassador Elias Ward folded his hands calmly. "They didn't retreat because of our fleet." Krail of the Vorth Dominion hissed. "Then why?" Ward looked at the holographic display of Earth. "Because they recognized something. What the Devourers really are." For centuries, the galaxy had assumed the Devourers were conquerors, predators, machines of destruction created to wipe out civilizations. But that wasn't their real purpose. They were not conquerors. They were caretakers. Long ago, a precursor civilization had built them to maintain balance in the galaxy. Whenever a species grew too aggressive, too expansionist, too dangerous, the Devourers would appear. They would erase the threat before it could destroy others. They were the galaxy's immune system, cold, efficient, merciless, but controlled by one rule: never harm protected species. Humanity's status. The lunar beacon proved that humanity had been marked as protected millions of years ago. But that still didn't explain something important. Protected species were rare, but not unique. Other civilizations had discovered ancient precursor markers before. Yet those civilizations were not immune forever. Protection could be revoked. Devourers had destroyed previously protected worlds many times in the distant past. So why did they retreat from Earth so quickly? Why didn't they simply verify the signal and continue their mission? Why did they act like they had encountered something dangerous? The answer lay in something humanity had only recently discovered, something buried even deeper than the beacon. Beneath the moon. Dr. Elena Navarro stood inside the Prometheus facility beneath the Himalayan mountains. The ancient machine hummed with quiet energy. The beacon had activated successfully. The Devourers had responded exactly as predicted. But that was only step one. Behind her, a group of military officers watched another holographic display. A scan of the moon. Specifically the crater where the beacon had originally been found. Navarro pointed toward the image. "The beacon was never the main artifact," she said. The officers exchanged confused looks. "It wasn't?" one asked. Navarro shook her head. "No. It was just the doorbell." The second discovery. When the beacon had first been discovered centuries earlier, scientists assumed it was the entire structure. But advanced scans revealed something else. Far below the lunar surface, there was another object, something enormous, buried kilometers beneath the rock. Humanity had kept the discovery secret for generations while they studied it. Eventually, excavation teams reached it. What they found stunned everyone. It wasn't a machine. It wasn't a weapon. It wasn't even a structure. It was a ship. A massive vessel made of the same unknown material as the beacon, and it was ancient, older than most civilizations in the galaxy. The impossible detail. But what truly shocked the scientists was not the ship itself, it was the interior. Because the ship had been built for a crew, and the skeletal remains inside the command chamber were unmistakable. They were human. A terrifying conclusion. When Ambassador Ward finished explaining this part of the story to the Galactic Council, the chamber erupted in disbelief. "That is impossible," Krail roared. "Humans evolved on Earth only 200,000 years ago." Ward nodded. "Yes, that's what we thought too." Admiral Corthell leaned forward slowly. "Are you suggesting humans existed millions of years ago?" Ward's expression darkened. "No, something else did." The Builders. Genetic analysis of the skeletons revealed something shocking. They were not identical to modern humans, but they were incredibly close enough to be related. Whoever built the ship beneath the moon was a precursor species genetically linked to humanity. A species that had existed millions of years before modern humans evolved. A species that had possessed technology far beyond anything in the modern galaxy. A species that had apparently created the Devourers. And for some reason, they had marked Earth as protected. The Devourers recognize authority. When the beacon reactivated, the Devourers did more than just receive the protection signal. They scanned the system, and their sensors detected something else. Deep beneath the moon, inside the ancient ship, a command signature, a genetic authorization code. The same code used by the creators of the Devourers themselves, encoded in human DNA. Why they were afraid. The Devourers were not afraid of Earth's fleets. They were not afraid of human weapons. They were afraid of something far dangerous. To them, humans were not just another species. Humans carried the biological command keys of their creators. To the Devourers' programming, humanity was not prey. Humanity was authority.
Attacking Earth would be equivalent to attacking their own creators, a violation of their core directives. A new problem. The council chamber was silent again. Finally, Admiral Corthell spoke. "If what you say is true, then humans could theoretically control the Devourers." Ward nodded slowly. "In theory, yes." The reaction was immediate. Fear spread across the room. Because if humanity could control the Devourers, they possessed the most powerful force in the galaxy. An unstoppable fleet capable of destroying entire civilizations. Ambassador Krail whispered nervously, "Does Earth intend to use them?"
Ward shook his head. No, we barely understand them, but their reaction today confirmed something important. What? Corthell asked. Ward looked toward the stars. The Devourers don't just recognize us, they're waiting for orders. The Creator message. At that moment, the war chamber alarms sounded again. The analyst from earlier rushed forward. We've received another transmission. The holographic display flickered. The same ancient signal from beyond the galactic rim appeared. But this time, the message was longer, much longer. The translation appeared slowly across the screen. Protected species confirmed. Genetic authority recognized. The chamber grew colder. Then the final line appeared. A line that would change the fate of the galaxy forever. Successor species detected. Command inheritance protocol activated. And beneath that, one final message, directed specifically to Earth. Humanity, the Devourers await your command. The galaxy's new fear. Across Council Prime, no one spoke. For thousands of years, the Devourers had been the galaxy's greatest nightmare. But now, everyone understood something terrifying. The Devourers were no longer the most dangerous force in existence. Humanity was. And suddenly, the question echoing through every civilization was no longer, will the Devourers destroy us? The new question was far more unsettling. What will humans do with them? For the first time in recorded galactic history, the Apex Devourers were waiting, not hunting, not destroying, waiting. Across the Milky Way, billions of sensors tracked the massive machines drifting silently beyond the Sol system. The once unstoppable fleet now held position in deep space like obedient guardians awaiting instructions. And those instructions could only come from one place: Earth. The weight of power. Inside the United Earth Assembly Chamber in Geneva, representatives from every human nation sat in absolute silence. Above them hovered the live projection of the Devourer fleet. Thousands of dark shapes, each capable of erasing a planet, all waiting for orders. President Amara Hale stood at the center podium, staring at the display. The room felt heavy. Humanity had always dreamed of reaching the stars, exploring them, meeting new civilizations, but no one had ever imagined that one day humanity would inherit the most powerful weapon the galaxy had ever known. And now the galaxy was watching, waiting, wondering what humans would do. Panic in the Galactic Alliance. On Council Prime, the mood was far less calm. Fear had spread through the Galactic Alliance like wildfire, because if humans commanded the Devourers, then humanity had effectively become the most powerful force in existence. Entire civilizations could be erased with a single order. Ambassador Krail paced nervously across the chamber. This cannot be allowed. We cannot allow a young species to possess control over the Devourers. Another diplomat responded immediately. And how do you propose to stop them? Krail didn't answer, because everyone in the chamber knew the truth. There was no way to stop them. Not anymore. The Devourer transmission. Back in the Sol system, the ancient signal from the Devourers continued to transmit. Dr. Elena Navarro and her research team monitored it carefully. The message was simple but constant: awaiting command. The machines were patient. They could wait centuries if necessary, but the moment humanity gave an order, they would obey without hesitation. Navarro turned to the military officers watching the data stream. They're not just asking for orders, she said quietly. They're asking for direction. What kind of direction? One officer asked. Navarro looked at the deep space map. The same purpose they were built for: to protect the galaxy. The lost history. When humanity explored the ancient ship buried beneath the moon, they had discovered something else. A massive archive of fragmented data. It had taken decades to decode, but the results were astonishing. The precursor civilization that created the Devourers was not a warlike empire. They were explorers, guardians, a species that witnessed the rise and fall of countless civilizations. Over millions of years, they had seen something troubling. Every advanced species eventually reached a point where its technology became powerful enough to destroy entire star systems. Some civilizations used that power responsibly, others didn't. And when one civilization went too far, it often dragged the rest of the galaxy into catastrophe. The precursors had nearly watched the Milky Way destroy itself. So they built a solution: the Devourers. Autonomous machines designed to remove civilizations that became dangerously aggressive. But the precursors also understood something important. Machines alone should not decide the fate of intelligent life. So they created a safeguard, a successor species, one that would eventually inherit authority over the Devourers, one that could guide them with wisdom instead of cold programming. That species was humanity. Why humans? For centuries, scientists debated why humans seemed so adaptable, why their creativity often outpaced other species, why they advanced technologically so quickly compared to their relatively young age. The precursor archives contained a shocking explanation. Millions of years ago, the precursor civilization visited Earth. At the time, life on the planet was primitive. Early mammals had just begun to dominate the ecosystem. The precursors studied the planet and found something fascinating. Human ancestors possessed unique neurological traits: curiosity, creativity, and an unusual ability to cooperate even among strangers. The precursors believed these traits might display a species capable of balancing power with empathy. So they guided human evolution, not by creating humans from scratch, but by subtly accelerating their development. Humanity wasn't an accident. It was an experiment, a successor civilization meant to inherit the responsibility of protecting the galaxy. The First Order. The revelation stunned the leaders of Earth, but there was still a decision to make. The Devourers were waiting, and their first command would set the tone for the future of the galaxy. In the Prometheus facility, President Amara Hale stood beside Dr. Navarro before the control interface connected to the ancient beacon. A single command line blinked quietly. Navarro spoke softly. Once we issue a directive, the Devourers will integrate it into their core programming. So this isn't just an order, Hale said. It's a new rule. Navarro nodded. A rule that could last millions of years. The galaxy holds its breath. Across the Galactic Alliance, every civilization monitored Earth's next move. Military fleets remained on high alert. Diplomats prepared emergency negotiations. Some civilizations even began constructing new defenses just in case humanity decided to use their new power aggressively. But many others hoped for something else. Because over the last century, humans had gained a reputation. They were stubborn, they were unpredictable, but they were also known for one thing above all else. They believed in giving others a chance. Humanity's decision. President Hale placed her hand on the console. Then she spoke the command aloud. Transmit new directive to Devourer fleet. The system acknowledged. Command ready. She took a slow breath, then gave the order that would change galactic history forever. Directive 1. The Devourers will no longer destroy civilizations. Dr. Navarro looked up in surprise. Hale continued. Directive 2. The Devourers will act only as guardians.
The command signal surged through the beacon, spreading across interstellar space. Far beyond the Sol system,